Hi. Last month, an event took place that could make Canada the best country on earth to invest in. What was that event? The Canadian Western Province of Alberta, also known sometimes as the Texas of Canada, elected a new premier, equivalent to a US state governor. Her name? Danielle Smith. In her post-election speech, Premier Smith threw out a political nuclear grenade, which, in my opinion, can have profound impact on investment decisions in Canada for a generation. Who is Premier Smith? She came from a splinter Conservative Party of Alberta called the Wild Rose Party, whose platform included separating from Canada if Alberta does not get what it sees as its due. Something like the Parti Québécois in Quebec, which nearly separated from Canada twice. Both times, luckily, the vote came up a no, but barely. But just the scare of splitting means that today Quebec is in effect being bribed by the rest of Canada to stay. I visited Montreal last year, and the city is booming. Construction, commerce, business, mostly financed with Ontario's and Alberta's money. However, whereas Ontario and Quebec feel they have a say in Canada, Albertans, whether right or wrong, feel that they don't. That's why the Wild Rose Party came into being and now has taken over the Provincial Conservative Party, as Albertans seem to say to the feds, no more. Why? Is it just money? No. Politics is never just about money. It's about power. Albertans somehow feel that they have none. There have been edicts from Ottawa's environmentalists that cancelled pipelines, told Alberta farmers and other Western farmers to grow less food, not to make too much carbon. And recently, there was even a question of who gives orders to the Mounties. That's Canada's FBI. Is it the federal government or the province? This last issue may be going soon to Canada's own Supreme Court. But why does all this relate to investments? Because of Canada's huge resource base. That's why. This resource base is worth trillions of dollars, currently mostly locked in the ground by Ottawa. And soon it may be unlocked because of what Premier Danielle Smith just said in response to a journalist's question. What was the question? A visible hostile reporter asked the new premier what she would do if Canada's Supreme Court issued a verdict she didn't like. Would she still obey it? The unssaid part was, would she announce a referendum on leaving Canada, as Quebec did? This, of course, was a trick question, because a referendum needs the approval of the feds in Ottawa. Quebec did, both times, regarding the exact wording. But Premier Smith did not fall into the trap. Like every good negotiator, she said she doesn't have the power to decide. Rather, she said, it was up to Alberta's provincial legislature to decide if it wants to obey the Supreme Court or not. If you're an American, imagine what would happen if the governor of Texas, say, or of Florida, had said that his legislature would decide whether to remain in the United States if the US Supreme Court issued a ruling the state legislature didn't like. That's how the US Civil War started. Immediately after Smith gave her response, a hush fell. But then she added impishly that her assistant, by the way, has 500,000 email addresses of supporters on his database, those who elect the legislature, which means she could ask the legislature to vote to stay or to leave, because if they didn't go her way, they'd be voted out. How is that for power play? The hush turned into a shocked silence. All in the room understood what she meant. It was a nuclear threat against Ottawa's central power, a real threat, not a fake one. Because from now on, Ottawa must realize that anything economic or ideological it wants to allow or disallow in the West, they must check with Alberta first. And Canada's Supreme Court knows it too. And by the way, so does Canada's Liberal Party. The current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, a Liberal, is from now on seen as a leader that may split the country, just as his father, who was a Prime Minister half a century ago, almost did, when he tried to control Alberta's oil and resources. His son is seemingly trying to emulate him with the help of environmentalists. But now, by throwing a nuclear threat, Danielle Smith just ensured that Trudeau is likely out. The Liberal Party elders, yes, they are such, will make sure of it. Canada's unity comes first. But what's the meaning of all this to your investment decisions? Let me spell them out. On paper, Canada is the best placed country on earth for investing. The resources are so abundant, it's almost ridiculous. There's plentiful water. Agriculture here can both feed the country and export food. Oil and gas seep from every shale and rock. The metal deposits made the country into one big potential mine. On top, the legal system is based on English law. So unlike the US, where anyone can sue because he or she won't pay cost if he lost, in Canada, it's loser pays. In other words, Canada could be a paradise for commerce, if not for the bureaucracy. Now, I'm semi-retired, but I still have friends on Bay Street, Canada's Wall Street. Most of the smart ones who run billions say they will not invest in a new mine or a new oil well because it takes 10 to 12 years to get one approved. As a result, there are trillions of resource value, trillions buried in the ground. And over the next few years, these trillions of value will be multiplied further, maybe fivefold, perhaps more, with inflation and the coming resource scarcity. Now, today, oil is about $80 US a barrel. And as the deep recession of 2023 hits, oil may likely go lower. But then a central bank next year worldwide must sprint a way out and recovery starts, oil will climb. So by the end of the decade, it could reach 5 times its bottom price, maybe even more, as will other resources, including mines. Hello, Canada, resource investment paradise. In such a future, Alberta and the west of Canada would be not just rich, but filthy rich. Oil and gas, wheat, agriculture, fertilizer, pipelines. At the same time, Ontario and Quebec, consumer of resources, would become poorer. And by then, with its piles of new money and the threat of separation, Alberta and the rest of the West could call the shot. The risk of Canada splitting would then be in the West, not in the East and Quebec as it was in the past. And Danielle Smith of Alberta could be holding a key to it. The first sign that both voters and Canadian elders see this is that the federal Conservative Party just elected a Western leader, Pierre Poilievre. He is a compelling speaker and has a Trump-like hold on the audience, but without any of, shall we say, Trump's carnival shticks. What are the investment implications? Canada today, in my view, is analogous to a large turnaround company whose assets are enormously valuable, but are locked in since current management has, shall we say, odd ideas about its role. However, more and more, there are big corporate interests, both in Canada and abroad, who would love to invest in the locked value of mines and oil. And they see the current management as standing in the way of trillions of dollars of revenues. And money has a magnetic power in politics. Political contributions have already started flowing to those who can unlock it. More is to come, which, in my opinion, will bring great prosperity to Canada, both because of natural resources and the other scarce resource of the coming few decades. Which one is that? People. As the United Nations forecast, most developed countries have gone on a birth strike and populations are shrinking. Canada, too, has low birth rate, so it, too, must compete for immigrants. But with the coming resource wealth, after the coming recession of next year, Canada could pick and choose among them, while the resource producers in the West call the shots to make sure the revenues are flowing. Now, let me hasten to add, the above has little to do with right or left. I used to vote Liberal for many years. In fact, Jean Chrétien, the former Liberal Prime Minister and a friend of Pierre Trudeau, Justin's father, was a partner of mine in Golden Capital in the 80s, in the prehistory, when he took a break from politics. I had no hesitation to vote for him, as did most of my partners then. What I'm saying here is that not political, but purely and coldly commercial. Canada is an undervalued stock, a large one, and I can see a new regime supported by corporate interests ready to unlock Canada's value. Yes, like most turnarounds, it can take longer to blossom, but Yes, again, once it does, the upside is often more than most imagine. The implications? Sometime in 2023, after the current market run-up, the market will likely crumble, and everyone again will speak about the end of the world. By that time, raw oil will likely be lower than today, in my view. But then central bank will, or rather must, print again massively to help the recovery. And oil will zoom, as will other resources and Canadian stocks. Like which stocks? That's a story for another day. That's all for today. Please let me know what you think of the above. And if you like, give it a like and subscribe, retweet, so that all your friends so they can subscribe too. And go buy my book, The Sleuth Investor. And if you like it, give it a good review on Amazon, please. I'll see you next time. Meantime, thank you very much for watching.